Do your students know what to expect from the classroom? Do they know what procedures to expect? Do you model and practice those procedures? If they come in the wrong way, they're rowdy and they're causing a problem, do you send them back out in the hall to come back in correctly? I've done that many times, like, oh, I'm sorry, Miss Chapman thought her class was coming in the right way. Let's try it again. And back outside and back in. And they know because you've practiced it the way they're supposed to come in. And then when they come in more calm and like they're supposed to, you have a better chance for things going better in your classroom that time. Do your routines maximize instruction and minimize disruptive behaviors? Do you have those things for them to do that don't give them the chance to have a disruptive behavior? They're doing the procedures that you go. And you don't have to have 800 procedures. You can have 3 or 4, and they just know these are the 3 or 4 that we do, and practice those, reward them for doing those things correctly, and model them. And it seems like at the first of the year that you're wasting time working on these things, but I promise you that first week or two, if you practice these and get these consistent and they understand what your expectations are, problems will solve themselves later on because you won't have to be coming back to these all the time. There still may be, they've been out for a couple of days on spring break and they come back and they don't follow, and that you have to go back and practice those again. But it really does help in the long run to have those procedures. So think about your classroom, the age of your students, the physical arrangement of how your class is laid out, and what are those routines that you can start with on the first day for them to understand what to expect in your classroom. I don't know if Sharon or Elizabeth or anyone on the call has any other things that you would like to share about that, your experience with setting up a classroom. Elizabeth taught music, right? So she might have a different way to set up her classroom than others, but I don't know if you guys have anything you wanted to add.
I mean, music is a little bit different than a traditional classroom, but it didn't matter if I had kinders or 5th or 6th graders. I had the same structure to my lessons for every single grade level. And that was also really nice when they switched grade levels every year. It's like, no, you come in, welcome song, warm-ups, you know, etc. And they knew what to expect. The other really nice thing about this is for our kiddos that are on the spectrum or need some special supports, they know what's going to happen and they really love that predictability, as do a lot of us.
And if you're working in your school with a certain kind of behavior model or expectation, some people do class constitutions or things like that, where they're talking about how they want to be treated, their social contracts, how they want to be treated, how the teacher should be treated, how they should treat each other. And then some classes have a signal for when things aren't, you know, if somebody says something that's not helpful, they have a signal to you that, hey, something's going on, and you can stop and point back to your social contract and say, remember, we agreed to do this. So there are a lot of ways to do that, but I like what Elizabeth said, like no matter the class, no matter the day, these are the things that we expect as you come in and do these. And I always had something they were doing as they came in, which kind of keeps them working, being busy and working towards getting settled.
The only other thing I was going to mention is, and hopefully I'm not reiterating what you already said, was I pretend before school started, I pretended to be a student and I walked through the whole day and I would just figure out, oh, wait, this is not a good spot for papers, or they have to walk through everything anyway. So just getting in the mindset of a student and what it looks like to them helped me to pick classroom arrangements, procedures, that type of thing.
Especially if you have a little older students and the desks are bigger, like trying to find a great way to fit all the desks in to make a flow. I did that several times. I'd go in and try something. I'm like, oh, I don't like the flow of this, and then come back and try to remake it so it works better. And sometimes we have old rooms. It's a block room, so there's not a lot of there's not a lot of ways we can move it around, but kind of finding that best fit for your classroom, depending on what you're doing. But so I hope one of the things we wanted to think about is these are all things you can do before you see any kids come to you, is walking your classroom, thinking about where problems might be, and thinking of procedures or routines you're going to need, and being ready to model those the first day as they come in. And when students know what to expect, when you have a little bit older students, they'll throw out the word fair, and if they know what to expect and they ask you if you're fair, they'll say yes, because these are the rules, these are the routines, these are things that happen. Okay, so let's think, and we can do this in the chat if you would like to. So let's think about do's and don'ts. So you can put a do or a don't into the chat. Okay, expect students to automatically know your routines when they come in. Well, I had Miss Morgan last year. I'm sure my routines are not different than Very good job, A+. Of course, you want to make sure that, they might have been in school, but not in your classroom. And you may have a certain, like for instance, Elizabeth has music. She may have a little bit different setup. And so you want to make sure that they understand what you expect them to do. Okay. Arrange the room to best support the activity at hand. So clusters, maybe if you're doing a lot of group work, U-shapes for discussion. Maybe you have centers stationed out. Very good. And everybody has different rooms, so there's not one way fits all for that. You just have to kind of find out what best works for you, the space that you have. Very good. Okay. How about place frequently used supplies like paper and instructional materials in easy to reach locations? They easily can go get the lab equipment or go get the supplies they need. Very good, of course. Easy place to go. Keep unnecessary furniture and equipment in your classroom that may limit space and restrict student movement. This is the hardest one, right? We don't want to get rid of the stuff, but we have nowhere for it to go, so it gets in the way. So very good. Of course, we want to try to make it in our instructional space that we don't have anything kind of restricting that movement to keep problems from happening that we don't want to see arise. Very good job. A+ for everyone. Post written or visual cues for routines in your classroom so students can refer to them each day. So you might think this is like, oh yeah, my younger kids need this. No, your older kids need it too. Just visual clues to remind them of things that you expect for them to do, or best practices. Very good. Okay, so we've talked a lot so far about environmental adjustments, and then those skills like where to find the materials, how to, enter and leave the classroom, how to get from one place to another, how to transition from a quiet time to maybe a group time. So let's think about in the moment responses now. So we've done all the preventative things we can do. We've planned for things that we think might happen, and then now things happen. So what are things we can do in the moment to try to handle some of the things that come up in the classroom? Okay, so I'm going to have to move around my box of people so I can see the graphic. But in thinking about brain structure and regulation, we see the thinking center over to the left, right? So this is our prefrontal cortex that helps us do deep thinking and problem solving. And we know that our brains are the drivers of our behavior. And we've got these three systems. And the first one we're going to talk about is that deep thinking and problem solving, which we'd all like them to be in, right? Do we know the age that actually maybe completes forming? Way after they're out of college, right? Yeah, at least 25. So whenever you think about, wow, they're just not thinking about that, they're probably not, because it doesn't have a full formed up there yet. Even when your kids are in college, they're still kind of working through that. And so So we want them to be there, but it's not all going to be formed yet. Okay, let's think about the emotional center or the limbic system, which controls our emotions and our drives. If our limbic system senses a threat, it can send a message to our brainstem that puts us in fight, flight, or a freeze response. When the thinking center is driving, we are regulated. That's what we all like to think we could do as adults, like be regulated using that thinking part. Because our students don't have those fully formed prefrontal cortexes yet, it's easy to see that sometimes the limbic system or the brainstem is in charge. It also happens to us on occasion, right? When we are taking in stimuli, it can trigger our limbic system and throw us into dysregulation as well, especially like, let's say a child is screaming and a child continues to scream and cry and nothing you do helps and nothing anyone else does helps. And Sharon talks about a story where there was a student of a teacher who did that for everything. If they were upset about something, they cried. If they didn't like something, they cried. If they were anxious, they cried. For no reason, they cried. They cried when they walked the track. They cried when they went to music. It was everywhere. It wasn't one particular thing. And that could wear on a person, right? Even though we are patient. And so things like that can get us into dysregulation too. And when that happens, we're reacting to the behavior, not responding to the behavior. I think we'd all like to respond to behavior, right? We've thought about it. We're professionals. We've worked with kids. We'd like to think we respond to behavior. But have you ever been into a disagreement with a loved one? Your husband, your children? I'm just thinking about my husband tends not to listen when I'm talking. And then, he goes, "You were saying what?" So we can all get into that situation. And so we're going to talk about this a little bit later. But if that screaming is one of your hot buttons, you're going to react to that instead of respond. And then that's going to cause it to be a worse situation, right? So if I'm remembering right, and Sharon can tell me this, I think they were outside and they were having cupcakes and he was upset about the cupcake and was screaming about that, in which the teacher decided she would just throw the cupcake away because she'd had it with the screaming, right? So obviously she felt really bad about that and wouldn't do that again. Maybe the student wouldn't argue about the cupcake again, right? But we were reacting to that behavior because it just continued and continued and continued. So when things come up that tap into our emotional center, we can become dysregulated and end up reacting instead of responding. And we want to be responding to behavior and not making it worse, if that makes sense. So when we are regulated, here are the things. Oops. I was trying to move this out of my way. Okay. When we are reacting, it's an instant reaction. And maybe not the instant reaction we wanted, right? But if we're responding, we might slowly think about what we might be happening and react slower to the situation and not try to make it worse, right? If we're reacting, we're in the moment, we're just saying what comes to our brain, right? We're saying what our feelings are. If we're responding, we're evaluating what could be going on with that student and trying to think about how we can respond that will de-escalate the situation. If we're reacting, we're survival oriented. We've all been there. What can I do to survive this 45 minutes, right? How can I get this group to work together? But if we're responding to it, we're thinking about all the things that have been going on and we're weighing the consideration and how can we get this to go for the next few minutes that can make or break our hour. And if you think about it, you can end up regretting things later. And if you're responding, even though it might not be the best situation, you're responding with the best things for those students. And once you've gotten to know them, over the course of the first month or so, a little bit better response to them instead of reacting. So all we're trying to tell you today is just we try not to react, we try to respond with some ideas, and we're going to talk about some of those ideas today about how to respond. And of course, a dysregulated adult cannot work with a dysregulated child, right? I mean, just think about in your own, if you and your husband, or you and your child, or you and your friend are both emotional, upset, and dysregulated, nothing's going to happen to make that better until we calm down. The same thing's going to happen in your class. We can't help a student who's dysregulated if we get there first. And we've all been there. I mean, there are lots of students I've had to go back to and say, you know, I'm sorry, I really should not have said that. I was upset at you. You know, we should have done this together. And it makes it worse. Like, we're trying not to make the situation worse. We're trying to de-escalate the situation the best that we can. So ideas for regulating when you know that you're about to react instead of respond, right? So taking a few deep breaths, or I've even seen teachers say, hey, I just count to 10. I take a deep breath. I kind of count to 10 in my head. My students knew if I was smiling at them and waiting and like obviously counting to 10, there was a McDonald's across the street, and my students would say, hey, she's all thinking about going to work at McDonald's. So whatever you're doing, quit. You know, because they knew that something had happened that I was like, I just can't do this. I got to sit here for a minute. A lot of counselors will tell you to use your 5 senses. Think about 5 things you see, or 5 things you hear, or 5 things you smell, and concentrate on something for just a minute. And then that de-escalates and sims down your emotion, and then you can respond instead of react. Some teachers will go and take a drink wherever their bottle of water is, or wherever their drink is situated. They might go over and just take a drink. Just looks like you're losing your voice and you take a drink for a minute, but you're really kind of calming yourself down. We can be like Taylor Swift and shake it out. Some people just let everyone stand up and kind of take a brain break for a minute and shake it out, or march in place or something, and then we can sit down and try again. Sometimes you just had to take a break. I was lucky, and I had a buddy teacher next door to me that our doors opened up, and if one of us just had to step out in the hall for a minute, the other one would just kind of watch both classes for just a second to let you kind of regroup. And sometimes you just have to do a pep talk and say, you can do this, right? Like, it's okay. I'm a professional. I can handle this. And, outthinking students all day long is a hard job. So you just got to tell yourself, you can do this. You can kind of simmer down and calm down and get that message to that positive message that you can do this. All of these sound like simple things, but they really do work, especially if it hits the hot button we're going to talk about in a minute, that one thing you just can't do, that one thing you just can't shake. These are really great ways to kind of calm yourself down so you can respond and not react. So one of the best things for, I think, anyone who works with groups of people is to identify hot buttons for you. What are things that make you frustrated? What are things that get on your nerves? What are things you can't get by? If someone does this, you're just really upset for the next hour. What are those things, and why does it bother you? So I just want us to think for just a minute. And chocolate's great. If you have to go and get a piece of chocolate, that's great. For thinking about all those things, you're going to know what does it for you. We're all different. And so that's a great idea. Things that really help you just to take that relaxation for just a minute. So what I want you to do for just a second, you can write this down at home. I'm a writer. So if you've got a piece of paper and you want to write out your hot buttons and why they're hot buttons for you, you can do that. Or if you're not a writer and you just kind of want to visualize what your hot buttons are and why they're hot buttons, I just want you to take a minute to think about that. And then I'm going to let anyone who would like to share in the chat here in just a minute about what their hot button might be, but don't put it in there yet. I want everyone to think. So if you visualize, do that, or if you're a writer, do that. I'm going to give you 1 minute. Okay, that was a long minute, right? It's funny how you think about how long a minute would be when you're not talking, right? I will tell you that one of my biggest hot buttons, and it was that way with my kids, my husband, it is like if I'm talking, I need you not to be talking. Because I'm either giving you instructions about what you need to do next, which could be safety instructions, or I don't want to hear the 85 questions about what are we supposed to be doing. If you were quiet and listening to me, then I could answer questions, but for you just to say, I don't know what we're supposed to be doing. Or I'm arrogant enough to think that, hey, I've walked around to groups and I've seen something that's common among all groups. We're going to stop and let me tell you what misconception I think is going on, and then I can help you out, right? So, because I have a little bit more knowledge about the subject, so I can kind of help you out. Or I've been looking at some groups and maybe there's a better way to get this done. So they just like keep talking or not paying attention and then asking me directions for, the next 45 minutes. Always got on my nerves highly. I don't know why that was, except my mom was like that. So I'm pretty sure when you're in a household and your mom's like very kind, she's all very kind, but if she's talking, you are not. And if she's telling you something, you're listening, right? I mean, that was kind of the way it was. I know some people have talked about, like, my husband's ADD. So if you have an ADD child, that could be good or bad for you. It could be a hot button that, they're moving around all the time and not sitting down and not seeming to be focused, or it could be that you adapt to that. When I was teaching, they would say, Ms. Chapman, we're sending you student A. And I would say, okay. And they're like, you live with Lance, so you'll be fine with him. And I'm like, okay. So it could work either way for you. So now I'm going to say all together, if you would like to share your hot button, throw it in the chat. If you'd like to share, you don't have to, but if you'd like to share a hot button, you can put it in the chat. There's someone with me. I just did not want to give directions like 45 times. It seemed like, yeah. Mumbling, that's a good one. Or back talking. Like if you're just nice, like if you're nice and ask questions, fine. But if you're mumbling and rolling your eyes at me and, being silly, that's not helpful. Tapping or making noises. So someone who's a consistent tapper, clicking your pen, right? Or all of those things. The Velcro song with their shoes. That's a good Okay, so maybe wasting or abusing the materials we've given you, destroying them so you can't use them and you have to get another one. Like I have a free pencil box and you take them all, so now I don't have any, right? So trying to help you out. Yeah, back talking with really cussing and things like that. It's really tough. Touching my things, that's a good one. Like everything here on my desk is not for you. Not for you, right? These are all very valid things. And so you're already ahead of the game because you know already what bugs you. So if someone's at your desk touching something, that's when you take the deep breath, eat the chocolate, drink the drink, and maybe remind them, hey, we don't touch the things up here because things might get messed up. So let's try not to touch the things up here, right? A lot of times, if you think about what your hot button was, it's something in your family that happens, or or you're not very emotional, and so emotion is my hot button because I don't understand what other people are, or things like that. So already identifying what it is will help you. It took me a while to figure out that if I just kind of told them this is my big deal, like please listen to me, that it worked out better. This is one of the things that's not, that is non-negotiable in my classroom, is that when I'm talking, you're not, and then we'll get along great, right? The biggest thing is, how do you respond to these? So everybody has hot buttons. There's no way about it. It's all going to trigger us. It probably triggers you when you're with your friends or with your family, not just in your classroom, things that happen. And so just thinking about ways that we can respond to those things if it happens, because we know that's a trigger for me. So here's some other ones that maybe you didn't mention that people have talked about. Staying seated. My daughter was ADHD. She would never sit in the chair. She would be listening to you or working, but she'd have to have her foot up in the chair or half on the floor or standing. And so I was thinking, and she'll be 25 in August, but I was thinking about, now we have a lot of like, I see bicycle desks, like that would have been great for her. She could just keep bicycling while she's working, or standing desks that we have a lot in our offices. That would have been perfect for her. I mean, she's not trying to misbehave intentionally all the time. It's just she can't sit still. And some of the time you're going to give them the errands to run, right? Even if you don't have an errand. I had a principal, the note would say, hey, Brenda just needs to come to the office for a minute. Ask them how their day is, send them back. Just because they're ADD and they need to be walking, I didn't really need anything. Ask them how it's going, tell them you wanted to know about their day, and then just send them back, and they just needed to walk around for a minute. Or running an errand you don't need. Hey, take Miss Morgan this for me. She doesn't need it, but it's okay, she gets it. That's a good way to help with that. Excessive talking. I mean, that was me, right? Short attention span, impulse control. And I think a lot of you talked about those. Aggression. Don't feel bad about trying to use one of these ways to help those hot buttons, because it's going to help your classroom and you and the student, all of you together. Like if you and the student are at odds because they're up, bothering other groups, and you could send them off for just a minute, that helps the whole classroom too. And it's helping the student go walk around, get that blood, pumping around, and come back, and they can be maybe a little bit more attentive to what's going on. We kind of talked about that. Sometimes it's your family, sometimes it's just what frustrates you in life in general, right? Think about maybe when the student has behavior, what might it be communicating to you? So if you've got someone interrupting all the time, maybe they're just excited about their idea and they can't keep it to themselves and they got to blurt it out. Anybody have students like that? Whatever comes to their head, it's got to come out. And so you can work with them on that and try to think about it in your head, write it down. But a lot of times, if you've got students like that, it's just going to come right out. And so maybe just working with them on some strategies. Maybe they need a break. Maybe they're overstimulated and they're the one that maybe needs to go and read for a minute or run the errand or whatever. Maybe they need your help solving a problem. And, when you have kids, their problem is the most important thing at the moment, no matter that you have other people in the room that also have things to, that's the most important thing to me. Maybe if they're out of their seat frequently during work time, maybe they're ADD, but maybe they're struggling. And we had a teacher in a workshop we did not too long ago that said every time they were working on a certain thing, he was at her desk and he needed to talk to her about something, or he needed to go to the restroom, or he needed a Kleenex, or he needed something, and he never would try it. And so she thought after a while that maybe if I go back with him, and so she went back and worked the first couple of problems with him, and then he got more confident, and then so that was his trigger. She knew if he was coming and asking a lot of questions like that and not working, that he was struggling. Maybe they're bored. You've got those gifted kids who can do it in their head and don't see the need to put it on paper. I've had some of those students where I'm like, okay, like, let's put a little bit of on paper for me so I can see what you're thinking, but they can do it all in their head. So they don't see the need for that. So if they're up walking around, maybe that triggers you to talk to them about, why are they up walking around doing that? So sometimes that behavior can really kind of tell you maybe what's going on with some of your students. My chat disappeared. So let me try to bring it back. Okay, there we go. So back to our chart that we were looking at. We talked about things you could do before you came to your class, setting it up, things you could think about those rules and procedures and skills you could think about. I taught social studies, so I never had rules. I had rights and responsibilities. So you had the right to be in my class. Here are the responsibilities for you to be in my class, which I think is fun, and we're going to have a great time. So you need to be here. So here are all the responsibilities. So guess what? If you misbehave in the cafeteria, you can't come here to my class, so you're missing out. So, all those ways to characterize them as procedures or rules or rights and responsibilities. And then we talked about thinking about our own de-escalation. What are our hot buttons? What can we think about that we're going to respond, not react? But there are strategies we can use. And so let's look at a few strategies in classroom management that are pretty common. Harry Wong, our favorite Harry Wong. An effective teacher manages a classroom, an ineffective teacher disciplines a classroom. If you're having to discipline all the time, that's all that's getting done, because that's all your attention is on all of these problems that are happening. Then there are kids who are telling on the other kids or don't like this thing going on. And so if you're disciplining everyone all the time, or these kids are taking up for this one, then nothing's getting done. But if you're managing and you've thought about all the problem spots in your room and ways you can react before this happens, you can maybe manage those things. And you won't be able to manage everything, but maybe you can manage some of the smaller problems that you have. So nothing we tell you today in our experience is going to be work all the time, 100% in every classroom for every child. And if you could find that remedy, you're going to make $1 million going out and telling all the teachers what to do. Because there's not one thing we can tell you that will work. There's not one classroom structure we can tell you that will work best for your students. It depends on your students and your room spaces and the subject you're teaching and the materials you have. And then, the personalities you have in your room, and you're comfortable about those things. So there are some management strategies we can look at, and some of them may work for you. So that's what we're going to do next. So one of the management strategies that a lot of teachers use is just redirecting. So asking the student a purposeful question or assigning a task to refocus their attention. That could also be, maybe moving them to a different center or station. Like it's time to, maybe we're going to move early because we noticed that we need to kind of redirect. Planned ignoring. This works too. Intentionally not acknowledging a behavior that is not disrupting others. So if they're doing something they're not supposed to do, it may be my hot button, but it's not hurting their students around them. Maybe just ignore it and don't let it be a big deal until it affects other people, maybe. Signaling. Teachers are the greatest at this, right? Like using nonverbal signals, the evil eye, like, yeah, I'm watching you over there. You know, I can see what you're doing. Thumbs up. That's really good. Thanks for doing that. You know, all those signals, walking over, or maybe just standing there for a little bit, right? Just all those signals that you need that you're doing a great job, or hey, maybe don't do that, right? Use of humor. Using a humorous content or joke to ease a tense or anxious situation. Not sarcasm, but just kind of, you know, a quick little joke that's kind of lightens the load and moves on. A lot of times I made fun of myself. So that was not them, but me. Maybe I dropped something, or I couldn't get my computer to work like it was supposed to, or something like that. Hurdle help. Assisting a frustrated, overwhelmed, or unmotivated student. Maybe like I talked about earlier, walking over and working the first problem. When kids are writing, sometimes they just can't get started. So walking over and helping them with that first sentence to get started, or finding that first source they need to look at to get started, or if it's a graphic organizer, helping them fill out that first spot on there so they can get started doing it. Removing the object. Teachers are also really great at this too. Like going over, and if they're doing something, just taking the pen and holding it for a minute to stop clicking it. Or if you're in, I'm imagining Elizabeth because I can see her on our screen. If you've got instruments and they're not supposed to be playing, you may be going over and grabbing it for just a second and then giving it back when you're ready to play, right? So something that kind of just indicates not yet, right? And a lot of teachers will give little mouse pads or the little rubber pads if you're a tapper with your pen. So tap away on that mouse pad because it's not going to make any noise. Or, you know, tap your pen or tap your fingers on that. So if you know you've got a tapper and you've got a mouse pad or something that's rubber you can stick there, they can go to town doing that and it doesn't bother anybody. Once again, walking over like we talk about to help focus their attention. Interest boosting, displaying a genuine interest in child's work or interest. So if they're, you know, walking over in a quick 1 or 2 minute conversation about something you know they're interested in, may refocus them back to getting back to working because you've shown an interest in them. And I know there's some people that try to make sure they do that with 4 or 5 students a class period, or, you know, if you have them all day long, you can maybe touch base with everybody during the course of the day on something like that, just to kind of keep them interested. Sometimes you have to temporarily remove a student from the setting to prevent them time to regain composure. So if you know they're really about to blow their top and be angry, that's the errand they're running. Or you can let them go to the bathroom and come back. Just that little bit of buddy teacher. Sometimes it's great to have a buddy teacher where they can go over and work with the buddy teacher for the rest of the day if you have 30 minutes or so. I had that. It was great, especially if you have a conflict in your room between 2 students and you can send one of them next door to your buddy teacher and they can work on something while they're over there. It really does help dash that situation that's going, de-escalate it. Okay, we're going to give you a scenario. Then I'm going to go back. I'm going to flip back to some of our strategies. And I want you to put in the chat some of our strategies we just talked about that might work. Okay, so let's think about Nate. Nate is my nephew, so I can think about it. Nate thinks he can use his phone under his desk without you noticing. Because don't all students think that, right? They think they can text, they can get online, they can do all the stuff without you noticing. You're pretty savvy. He's wrong, and you know he's got his phone out when he's not supposed to have it out. So what strategy could you use maybe to help with this behavior? Oh, here we go. Let's go backwards. Okay, so we've got redirecting, signaling, I like proximate control, walking over. So he maybe stops because you're standing there. A nonverbal cue, like this isn't the time. Maybe removing it if you've got some procedures in place. Is the phone allowed in the room? Maybe it's one of those things where they're breaking the rules and you can talk about, take the phone, talk about that later. I like all those. That's probably need to change the question a little bit. And maybe they're on a website they're not supposed to be, since we've got some more laws coming in with the phone. Very good. I like all of those ideas, and they may work and they may not, but at least you've got an idea of what you might be able to do. Okay, let's think of another one. After you've gone over a lesson for the day, including modeling it, you notice Taylor is struggling with the first few questions. What management strategy could you use to maybe help? So let me go backwards. Hurdle help, that's a good one. Go over and helping them work the first few. Maybe pulling them to a table with the group that's having the same problem. That's good. Everybody likes hurdle help. I agree. Okay, let's try another one. The teacher knows that Bryson loves to read books about Harry Potter. While in class, we notice that he's getting antsy and keeps looking at the clock. So what management strategy might we, if he's getting a little anxious, he's looking at the clock, so something's happening, but he likes Harry Potter, what might we do? The interest use might be good. Maybe sending him out for a little bit and come back. So maybe whatever it is, the anxiousness might go away. I like both of those. Okay. I think I have one more. So Valencia is clearly upset when she walks in the classroom and as students are completing bell work, the teacher writes a message on a sticky note that says, Miss Donaldson has a library book I need. Could you go get it for me quickly? And you put the note on her desk. She returns a few minutes later with the book and sits down clearly in a better mood. So that's the one we've been talking about a lot. Is there any other strategy you think we could also do if that's not available to you? Maybe, I mean, that worked, but if it's not available or it might not work with that student, is there any other strategy? Because we know she's upset, something's happening at lunch, something's happened on her way to school on the bus, or something's happened with her parents. Let me go. Humor, maybe. Yeah, I like pulling the kid aside, and that probably could go to your interest thing too, like just pulling them aside and saying like that something might, did any you just seem a little bit upset. I thought maybe you'd like to talk to me today, or you might do the interest. Very good ideas. So see, you guys all have tools I know that you use. And so just thinking about it ahead of time so that you have them at your disposal. Because all of us are going to want to react to something. It happens all the time. And we sometimes have bad days too, right? We don't feel great. We're usually on top of it. We don't feel great. We're tired. And then we're reacting to something. Just having some of these things in the back of your mind that you've thought about that are ways to kind of try to de-escalate helps a lot. Let me go back ways. Okay. Are there any other strategies that we didn't mention? We just kind of pulled a few out of a classroom management book. Is there any other strategies you use that you haven't talked about that you'd like to throw in the chat? or any classroom structures you like, any maps of your classroom that you think work better? One of the teachers I know did a activity with their pre-K students, even pre-K and K students. And they had them draw. They gave them a piece of paper. They also gave them some paper they could glue on if they didn't want to draw, but they could draw or they could glue on, or they had some stickers they could put on. And they asked them to draw a picture of the room or create a picture of the room. And so she had 15 students and she had 15 different pictures of the room, even though the room is the same for everyone, right? And so that was a really interesting thing to do because people focus on different things. So some people drew the reading center as half the room, even though it was a small part of the room because that was their favorite part, or the reading rug where they sat down, or something like that. So that's an interesting way to look at it too. I've done that with teachers, and I had 50 teachers in a workshop and I had 50 different pictures of what the room looked like. So just thinking about these things, like sometimes it's not what it seems. Sometimes they're having issues and it's just manifesting in this behavior. And if you can respond to it, it might help better than react to it. Okay, so I've got 4 minutes. So I wanted to tell you about some other upcoming opportunities. First off, this is just the second part of the series of Lunch and Learn. And so we have more ideas coming your way on Tuesdays at lunch. We appreciate you coming and spending your lunch with us. We're also going to have some fall regionals in the fall for a lot of different subject areas. So if you think about a subject you're interested in, we're going to be at a city near you, hopefully. Muskogee, Atoka, Oklahoma City, Chickasha, and Enid, and be looking for those dates and registrations coming soon for those and all of the newsletters that we have. So the elementary newsletter, any of the subject newsletters that we have coming out. I know we got some Facebook pages for all the subject areas that it will be on. So anywhere that you get information, there will be workshops, and a lot of them are half-day workshops. So I know, like, I do half-day elementary social studies, and then the other half is secondary social studies. So I can see both groups on a day. So sometimes you can go to 2 things. So like I travel with the ELA. So there's ELA, elementary ELA in the morning and elementary ELA social studies in the afternoon. So you can go to both things for one day. So we try to make it where you can get multiple things in the same day. I know we have a lot of things going on with gifted and talented, which is great, and AI for the technology education and STEM. So we have a lot of things going on. I know for the elementary teachers in there. Okay. We appreciate once again, you guys spending time with us. If you have a second and you could fill out use the QR code and fill out a little survey for us about if this was a helpful workshop and what other workshops you might be interested in. We greatly appreciate for that. Instead of putting Inspire, can you put Lunch and Learn? I just used my Inspire PowerPoint, so I didn't have to make it again. So if you have friends, we will be doing this particular, Sharon and I will be doing this particular workshop again at Inspire OK at June 27th, right, Elizabeth? It's the 27th, right? Is that a Friday? Yeah, okay. Sorry, Elizabeth, I just see you, so you get all the questions. Thanks again. Our subject area people that are on my hallway really wanted to do something for elementary teachers. And so we really feel like we've got a lot of different topics that we want to do for the summer, and you can kind of pick and choose the topics of interest to you. And then we'll also have some more during the school year on different dates for different things that we thought about. But I know Sharon started out with the standards and the frameworks and where you can find all of that. The other thing we think of when you think of starting school is classroom management, getting started off on the right foot. So we thought this would be a good one, but there are all kinds of really great topics coming. I know family engagement and integrating arts and music and physical breaks and PE and things like that in your classroom. So lots of great information coming. So I hope you'll keep coming to our lunch and learns, and then come with us too in the fall when we do a few by the quarter, I think, in the fall. Yes, I think I forgot to record and someone hit it in the middle. So yes, you'll be able, and I will tell you, if you click the bit.ly link at the bottom, if you take a picture of that, you can't click it. If you take a picture of it, if you take a picture of the bit.ly link, you should get the PowerPoint, if that's something you're interested in. So I'll leave this up for a minute. It should give you the slides, and we'll have the recording up pretty soon. It might have the first couple of slides off of it, but it will have the rest of it. Thank you, Elizabeth. It's hard to share your screen and see you and do the chat because my screen is very busy at the moment. Okay, it is straight up 1 o'clock. So I'm gonna let everyone go. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you filling out the survey for us. That's how it helps us to know if this was a good topic for you and if you'd like to see other topics in the future. And I'll leave the screen up for just a second if you still need to take a picture of the bit.ly link, and we'll have it posted pretty quick on the recording. And I appreciate you all giving up an hour of your summer vacation where you could be outside doing something, maybe maybe outside. Like I have been needing to be in my garden, but I can't seem to get there. It keeps raining. Thanks everyone. We hope to see you next week.